Hello and welcome back to the Live Reality Game Podcast. My name is Steven. I'm here today to talk about the most recent episode of Surviving Bloomington, but I could not do it alone. With me is a man with no time for confessional, but he has time for the podcast. Drew, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Steven. I always have time for the podcast. Despite being at work, I'm on a break for this podcast, and I am very interested to talk about this episode. Things are not looking too hot for me, but that's okay. Speaking of hot, joining us is Bradi.
That was amazing. I'm obsessed. I'm so excited to be here, you guys. This has been a long time in the making. We have so much to discuss, so much behind the scenes stuff, tea, all that good stuff. So I'm excited to get into it with you guys.
Well, I'd like to start the first question. This is your first Survivor game. What was your strategy walking into it?
To be honest, I didn't have one, which is really bad in retrospect. But for me, coming in, I was just wanting to immerse myself as much as I could. And I just came in with the idea to be adaptable. I think regardless of what game you step into, you should always be adaptable. And I just wanted to focus on building relationships with people and creating connections and friendships that I hope could have kind of helped me throughout the game.
Now, you end up on the Chaos Tribe. Were you like, yeah, this is me? Or like, wait, no, I belong in the Order Tribe. How'd you feel about that?
It's hard because for me, I play I'm a loyal player. You could see throughout my season, I was a very loyal player to the people that I was with. But for me, if something doesn't go my way or if someone screws me, I'm going to blow that up in a hot second. I will absolutely pop off, go off. So I think I'm like an anti-hero, but I understand why I was put on the Chaos. But in terms of gameplay, I feel like I'm more orderly.
So talk to me about your initial Chaos Tribe, especially let's talk about Drew. We can start with Drew. What were your first impressions of him? Were you just like, man, this is my ride or die? Or just like you were maybe a little more skeptical at the beginning?
No, yeah. Right when I saw Drew and we started talking, we made eye contact and I was like, okay, this is gonna be my guy in this game. We both knew, we just had that good banner, we had good chemistry, and we both had good energy and very similar energy. So going in, I was like, okay, that's my number one, right off the bat. And then also I was able to talk to Danny a lot and they were super outspoken and funny. And they also came from the Instagram community as well. So they were also someone that I really got along with as well.
It felt like to me on that original tribe that there was a lot of drama going on around us that did not include us, which was really nice because me and Bradi were able to just chill in the tent while Marshawn, Kim, Rachel, Danny are making a mess.
It was a goose chase. And I remember sitting in that tent eating a cheese stick. And I was like, life is good right now because my name is not out there. And that's all I needed at that point.
Was anything new or surprising as you watched back those early episodes of the original Chaos Tribe?
Honestly, I feel like most of the bases, at least of what I thought was happening, were covered. In terms of that early part of the game, I feel like Drew and I were able to get a lot of the information. So I feel like there wasn't much that was surprising. I think some of the connections were a little bit surprising and seeing how people talk to the camera a little bit was surprising. Tyler, at first, my first impression of him, super quiet, reserved, this kind, quiet, very much wholesome. And then he goes in front of the camera and he's like, I'm gonna get these bitches. And I'm just like, oh my God, the full 360 of that man in front of camera was the funniest thing to watch for me because I was like, I don't even recognize him.
Yeah, I remember us talking early on being not frustrated at Tyler, but confused because we're like, why won't Tyler talk game with anyone? Mm-hmm. And then in confessionals, he's like, haha, my game is just to listen. And I'm being manipulative. And it's that was not our impression at all.
Right? At all.
So your Chaos Tribe, you win everything that first day. Had you gone to the tribal council, what would you like to see happen?
I mean, honestly, at that point, I feel like the first couple of votes, it's kind of just going with the tribe consensus. You don't want to ruffle too many feathers too early on. I think that's kind of a staple Survivor rule. So for me, there was a lot of things going on, with Marshawn and Danny and Kim and Rachel and that whole quadricept or whatever you want to call it. So I think that ideally, it probably would have been Marshawn just because that man was chaotic. So it was just a matter of trying to kind of keep the tribe unified, I guess. And he was kind of a little bit of a straggler, like planting seeds out here and there. So I think definitely it probably would have been him. At least that was my perception of it.
Yeah, I tend to agree that it would have been between Marshawn and Rachel, but I think Rachel had more backing.
Anything else about that first day you want to talk about before we get to the swap?
The first day was definitely like an interesting day. I mean, yeah, the swap was the first day, right?
End of first day, yeah.
At the end, yeah.
Honestly, it's all a blur, Steven, I'm telling you. Everything's just blended in. But yeah, the first day, it was a fun day. Like I was able to kind of help lead our tribe to victory and like the memory challenge. I ate that up. And then so it was just a really fun experience. Being able to do my first ever like tribal challenges was super cool as well, and being able to meet so many cool people from so many different walks of life and like get to know people and have these deep conversations with people who have such a loving similar interests as me. So I think that was super cool.
The swap begins, let me put it this way. I felt like a majority of your game you're under fire and people are coming for your throwing your name out. You often are a target. And this really begins at this first swap, right? Because on paper, the swap looks good. You have Jamie from the original Order tribe, and then you have Drew, Tyler, and Seth from your Chaos tribe. You talked about Drew being someone really close to. What did you think about this configuration that you found yourself in on Order 2.0?
I was so happy. I was like, I'm locked and loaded. Like I'm in such a good spot. Like I have my right-hand man, and then I have Tyler, my left-hand man, because he might be left right now, but he's going to go side to side eventually. But I thought I was in a really good spot. I mean, obviously the numbers, like the tribal lines, how that kind of played out, it wasn't in Jamie's favor. So I was like, okay, I'm at least good for one tribal council. And worst comes to worst, if we have to go to another tribal, I'll have to figure it out when I got there. It kind of was my plan of attack at that point.
Yeah, and honestly, I do think, well, obviously we see what happens if we had to go again, but like your name did come up at that Jamie vote, but it was literally like never going to happen. Like there was no way. You knew that I was not going to vote you out there, and Jamie was also not going to vote you out there, so there was no chance.
Yeah, exactly. So I felt okay at that vote. That vote was hard though, like especially like having to vote somebody who is non-binary and like having to like literally like lie to their face. Like I think that was like literally the one lie I told the entire game, and that was like the hardest thing for me to do. So that was really, really like that was such a bad feeling.
Yeah, Brady and I were back and forth until like the last second on like, do we flip and me, Brady, Jamie take out one of Tyler and Seth? And it would have been Tyler there if we had flipped, but it was definitely an ongoing discussion.
I mean, as we talked, that would have had ramifications. As had Jimmy be in the game, likely my tribe doesn't throw the next immunity challenge, you all win immunity and don't go to a follow-up tribal council.
I think that's possible. If we would have still lost and it would have been me, Brady, Seth, and Jamie, I don't know what would have happened. It would have been probably Seth or Jamie.
Yeah, I don't know which one it would have been between Seth or Jamie. I don't know. Like at that point, I feel like it probably would have been Jamie at the second one. Just because...
Do you remember? Okay, this was a topic of discussion in the YouTube comments, actually. So we vote out Jamie. We then have to go to another tribal council, and we're all kind of like, we don't know what to do. And then it just seems like all of a sudden everybody's like, let's vote Seth. Do you remember how mad you were at Seth that round when you caught him in a lie?
Oh my God, I was heated. I was so angry at him. I was like, because I remember like he went to you, said one thing, and then I approached him, literally asked him directly like the same thing. And he like flat out blatantly lied to my face. And I was just like, okay, that's like signed, sealed, delivered. Like you need to go at this point, because at that point, not only did he say my name, but he was lying about it. And I was just like, I'm a very direct player. I'm a very upfront and honest player. I'll say it's a blessing and a curse. I'll say what I mean and mean what I say. But I was just like, this guy. And then I went to Drew because I was so angry. And Drew was like, you cannot explode, Brady. Like you cannot like go off right now. This could actually blow everything up. So I had to put on my big girl panties, even though it was like pulled up my butt at that point because like all the rain and like rolling around in the tent, didn't even know what was happening, like was confused, woke up in Indiana and I was like, where am I? Like, honestly didn't even know what was happening. But yeah, it definitely pissed me off for sure.
Yeah, that was a rough one because basically Seth had pulled me and Tyler. So Seth at that point had viewed me as his number one and was like, okay, we have to decide between Tyler and Brady. And I was like, oh, you can call it. It's fine. And he goes, yeah, we'll do Brady then. I'm like, cool. So the same kind of discussion happens between Seth and Tyler. And Seth's like, we're going Brady. Brady comes to me and Tyler. Me and Tyler are like, hey, Seth's throwing out your name. Brady goes to Seth and Seth's like, oh yeah, Drew and Tyler are throwing out your name. And we're like, no.
Which is crazy. Like that move to me was wild, because if I were him, what I would have done personally would have been like, oh, I haven't heard your name. Like, I'm voting Tyler. That's what I would have done, because in the process, you just threw out two other people who were allegedly voting with you under the bus. So I was just like, okay, that's more ammunition that I have to get his ass out, because not only did he lie to my face, but he threw these two people he's allegedly voting with under the bus. So I was like, this is like what I need to just slip on by.
It's after the Jamie vote is when you claim your keys publicly, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and so after the Jamie vote, you go and say, hey, KC, I have this advantage. I think you got 2 keys for voting out Jamie, and that put you to 4 or 5 keys at that point?
Okay, this is like a funny story. I had 5 keys and I lost one of them. Like, completely lost one of them. And I was like, yep, your girl's got 5 keys. And then I started counting through my bag individually, one at a time. And I was like, I'm either really bad at counting or there's only 4 keys here. So I was like, oh crap. And then I went to Casey and I was like, hey, Casey, anything I can do to get that, extra key? And he's like, no, you can't just get a key. Like, you lost it. So I was like, God dang it. So yeah, that was when I revealed that. And that was, I know there was a lot of conversation about whether that was a smart move, a bad move. I did do it on purpose because I did feel like coming up that there would either be some sort of merge or another swap possibly. So I wanted to secure myself in a position where I'm like, hey, if we do go to another round, everyone knows about it now. They're going to assume that I'm going to use it right away since I just told everyone about it, and they're not going to want to vote me.
Yeah, and my read on it when it happened was, oh, this is fantastic for our group. Like, this is great. I mean, obviously, Tyler did not have the same view on it, but I was like, yeah, this is great for our group that Brady not only has more keys, but also she's like letting us in on it.
Well, it kind of starts a new phase of the game for you where everyone's like, Brady has keys. Is Brady going to play the keys? Should we target Brady to make Brady play his keys? It's a lot of conversation of you and keys from there on out, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, me and keys, that was the longest relationship I've ever had, honestly. I had those keys for a second. But yeah, it definitely was a topic of conversation for sure. In retrospect, do I wish I said that out loud? Would I have changed it? I don't know. I'm still kind of 50-50 about it because it did put a target on my back a little bit, especially going into the second half of the game. So,
well, at the Seth vote, were you saying like, hey, I'm playing my keys? Was that something you were saying at that point? Or you and Drew were like, yeah, I'm not playing my keys. You're safe for voting Seth. That wasn't a question at that point.
No, I wasn't playing my keys. It just came down to like, I trusted them. And I remember for some reason we were all like sitting around like the fire pit. And for some reason Seth kept leaving to get up to like get water, use the bathroom. So it just left me, Tyler, and Drew sitting there for like 10 or 15 minutes before we left. So we were all just talking and we were all kind of feeling, oh yeah, Seth, can't believe you did that. That's crazy, right? Like these nervous little side conversations that we were having when he was gone. So that kind of helped me kind of feel more comfortable too, because I'm like, okay, they're reassuring me. So I felt like at that point, I was like, I don't need to play these.
Yeah. So then we get to the second swap where it ends up being basically the Mask versus Femme tribes. We have that eating challenge, and me, you, and Tyler had discussed beforehand, whichever team loses, the other people pass off keys. So your team ends up losing that challenge, and on the way out, I'm like, oh, give me a hug, and I like pass you off a key. Did Tyler also give you a key? I don't remember.
He did.
So that's how you got to 6.
So I was supposed to have, no.
Because you had 5, lost 1, so you're at 4. Then both Drew and Tyler give you a key that puts you to 6.
I think it was. I think you had 5. When you played them, you only had 5.
Yeah. I initially had, because I had my initial starting key, and then I had the 2 that I got from the Jamie vote, and then I got y'all's two. And then I think was when I lost one of them
Yeah.
and got it back down to 4. And then I got another one a little bit later into the games to make it 5.
Gotcha.
It was
Yeah.
it was a whole journey. The key journey, honestly, that should have been like a mini series that they hosted after the credits, because that was a gong show.
I mean, your lost keys with Rachel's bathroom key.
Oh my god, imagine that storyline would be crazy.
So tell us about the lead up to the tribal council where Kim ultimately decides to step out of the game.
Yeah, that was honestly like such a hard tribal, and like before tribal, like literally the rain was just adding to the setting and adding to the dramatics, and it was such a hard tribal council, because I'm always watching this show and I'm seeing them cry at tribal and I'm like, oh, they're such losers, like why are they crying, like they need to get over themselves. And then you get put into this environment and you get so close to these people and you're just like, oh my god, like I actually like adore this person. And what Kim did, I think in particular, was kind of geared towards me in terms of representation, and it really touched me, and is something that I'm definitely going to remember for the rest of my life, and something that I'm never going to take for granted, because that vote, I was in trouble. I was definitely in trouble. If Kim didn't end up leaving, I was playing my keys.
Right. And I think we discussed this on a couple of the other podcasts, but based on my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, at that tribal, what would have likely ended up happening would have been you probably get 4 votes. You play your keys, so you don't get to vote. And there's a revote between Mackenzie, Danny, Kim, and Rachel. And it seems like Rachel would have gone out in a 3-1 on the revote. So
yeah, I think that's probably what would have happened. But
lots of ramifications on the game there, especially since we know Rachel goes into the final 5, where we're at now in the season. So crazy.
Oh yeah, it is crazy. Like it completely derailed where the game was going. And like, I don't know. I remember up to tribal, before we all had that conversation with Kim in the tent, I didn't tell anybody that I was playing my keys. I knew Mackenzie knew I had keys, because that girl went through my bag and she's like, guys, she only has 4 keys. And I was like, gosh darn it, Mackenzie. But no, I definitely was going to play it. But my mentality was I didn't want anyone else to vote with me, because I wanted them to turn against each other. So in case we did have to go to another tribal, there was distrust within that group of votes being thrown randomly. Whereas I could kind of hopefully just glide through and like not have to really play a part in that.
Did you and Rachel have a strong working relationship before or after this vote, or were you two kind of like after this, kind of like, hey, we're both doing our own thing?
Rachel and I's relationship in the game was so interesting, because it was one of those relationships where it was like we were never like, we were on the same wave a lot of the time, but we weren't on like the same surfboard. You know what you know what I mean? Like we were 2 different boards. Eventually we crashed into each other, but I think her and I, like, we never made it a point to like actively like be like, oh, this person needs to go, oh, we need to go after each other right now. But at the same time, like we weren't like ride or dies or like going out of our way to protect each other. It was more so just like a mutual respect thing, and just being like, hey, like I'm not gonna directly go after you guns blazing if you do the same for me.
It felt to me like when we were on the original Chaos Tribe, it was like me and you, Danny linking us to Kim and Rachel, and then like Tyler and Seth like loosely connected, and then Melanie and Marshawn kind of like doing their own thing. And then I remember at the first swap, so Melanie gets voted out and Rachel is like visibly panicking. And I remember after the challenge, me and you being like, Rachel, go look for advantages at camp. There have to be things hidden. So like we were actively trying to work with Rachel up until that point. And then I don't know what happened with y'all, because the moment merge hits, we get the confessional from you being like, I'm done with Rachel.
Yeah, I think what it was that I rogue voted her at the vote to get another key. And I think at that point I was honest with her about it. And I think that probably kind of derailed our relationship a little bit, for sure. Because she's like, you just randomly voted me to get a key. Like, why would you do that? But I don't know, like when we did talk to her, like, I don't know, like if I was a viewer and I was watching Rachel in her position that she was in, like I would be rooting for her. So for me, it was even kind of like from the little fan inside of me being like, yeah, you got this, girl. Like, go look for those advantages, get those keys. Like, I think that that's also played a factor in it as well.
So walking the merge, Jamie comes back. You have 10 people. how are you feeling? Who's important to your game? Like, what does the battle lines look like initially for you?
Yeah, I mean, Jamie going back in, I was like, okay, like that's kind of got to be an issue for me because of how everything played out. So I was nervous about that. Obviously, going in, Drew and Tyler were like my ride or dies. Um, this is something that hasn't really been discussed. John V and I were also pretty close, and the editing on it kind of didn't show us ever really talking or having those conversations besides maybe once, but we were locked in a lot of the game, at least from my perception of it. And we were kind of on the same page a lot of the time, but at the same time, like he had his priorities elsewhere, but I think we were kind of trying to look out for each other. But yeah, I think that the order that I didn't really mingle with were kind of the people that I was like, okay, these people are the first couple that need to go.
So that first vote, right? It's a storm. You're trapped in the tent. Was who would have been your ideal merge boot, or was Matt pretty close to that?
I don't know if Matt would have been my ideal merge boot just because he was like so cute. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to put him in my pocket. Like he was just like this small, like cute, like his smile and his eyes just like lit up the room. And I was just like, you're literally adorable. Like I just want to look at you. Like you're the cutest thing. So I was excited to get to know him. And I feel like I didn't really get to because of the storm. So that like stunk. And I don't know if I would have wanted Matt to be the first one to go just because from what I was hearing from other people, he was very loyal to the people that he was with. And I'm like, maybe I could build this relationship with him.
Yeah, I think me, you, and maybe Tyler. I guess I can't really speak for Tyler because who knows what goes on in that man's mind. Me and you were definitely like, Matt is not our preferred target here, but that's what everybody else is doing. So,
No, yeah. And, you know, it was the first merge vote. Like, you don't want to make too many waves too early on. There were still 10 people left at that point. So it's like, it would have been crazy for either of us to go out on a limb to try and flip the vote under a tent where we were literally all not even 3 feet away from each other. Like, you know, because that just would have put a target on us. That would have made, would have made us look like we were all working together. And I think it just could have been too messy. And I feel like that would have made us targets earlier on.
So what's interesting is there's 2 people you haven't met coming to the merge. Nat G, who we just talked about, and then Nat S, or Daddy Nat. Tell me about meeting Daddy Nat for the first time.
Honestly, walking in and seeing the mats, I was like, these mats are sexy. Like, I'm not sure like what mats we have in Massachusetts, but like, I'm not sure they look like American Eagle models I was walking into. I swear to God. And I talked to Daddy Matt briefly before when we were driving to get to the game. We were just talking about our personal life and stuff. So I was familiar with Daddy Matt and I was super excited to start playing with him and like talking to him and trying to like reconvene after not being able to play any of the games together up until that point. So I was excited for sure. It was just one of those things where it was like when I was trying to talk to somebody, he was also going off to talk to somebody, and it was hard to find time to really talk to each other. It wasn't like we were actively avoiding each other, but it was just simply like we were both having conversations with different people that were more of a priority, I feel like. And I feel like we both just kind of got put to each other's back burner.
So different waves, different surfboards.
We love a surfboard for sure. We love a surfer boy.
So the end of that third day, we're round up with that double tribal council. And this is, I think, this has massive ramifications for your game. So you hear from Casey, any advantage or idols played for the first vote will persist to the second vote. So if you're immune for vote 1, you're immune for vote 2. You can't vote for vote 1, you can't vote for vote 2, etc. Walk me through, what you thought would happen coming to this tribal council and what you wanted to do.
Okay, this is so embarrassing. Honestly, like watching it back, I got war flashbacks because I was like yelling at my TV. I'm like, you stupid bitch. Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm literally just like, I was in shock with myself because I'm like, I laughed with those players on Survivor. So to see me be that player, I literally made sure to bring the keys with me to tribal. And then when I got up, didn't bring them with me. Like, girl, someone literally could have picked those up and taken them off your stool, like wherever you put them. insane to me. Like, I don't even know what was happening at that point. I was running off like 4 hours of sleep and like a spoonful of rice. And it was like literally day 2. So there's like no excuse. Like, I had McDonald's the day before, but it was just crazy to me. Like, I'm still like so embarrassed, and I'm gonna just play it into that it was like my first Survivor game. So I was just like learning the ropes. I'm innocent. I'm just a baby, you know?
I mean, we were all exhausted. That was that tribal was at the end of day 3.
Mhm.
It had
So 2 days from
it
McDonald's.
had
You had that
shut-
going for you.
yeah, none of us had slept very much. It had rained all day. It was cold that day. Like, I've said this before. We were all processing things very differently. Mackenzie and Rachel were kind of in shutdown mode. Jamie was like fresh, ready to go after coming back from redemption. Me and Danny kind of were like, what's going on? And like you, Tyler, Matt were like ready to fight. So everybody was on different wavelengths. Such an interesting round.
It was. Everyone was on at such different, like, it was like Super Smash Bros. Honestly, like everyone had a different percent rate. That's like the best way to put it. Everyone was at a different energy level, and it definitely showed even by looking at like the camera shots as it like pans everyone left in the game at Tribal.
Yeah, because I'm with you with like when I saw that voting confession, you go up the vote, say, "Oh no, I forgot my shots in dark." And it's like, "Oh well, I guess I'll be fine, right?"
Right.
I'm like, "No, run back, get it. Don't let Casey stop you. Like the rule of cool, he'll let you do it if you don't ask him."
Right. I probably would have asked though, because I'm such a rule follower. But also I was like, I'm literally like poverty shallow, like literally looked disgusting, looked like I just made love with an air fryer and thought I was like eating this social game up. And I was like, no one's gonna try and touch me. Like everyone loves me. I'm like the social butterfly of this season. Like I'm gonna make it to the end. Like I don't even need to play these keys. So that was a mistake. Big mistake, yeah.
And I think that you being so socially integrated was what started scaring me the following round. So we see, we'll talk more about the double tribal, but like after seeing what happened in that double tribal, it was like, okay, me, you, and Tyler are not a triangle anymore, despite what Daddy Matt wanted everyone else to believe. So I was kind of having to play like middleman of like, I can't let Brady think I'm super close with Tyler, and I can't let Tyler think I'm super close with Brady. So I'm going to have to throw out the other's name to each other. It was such an interesting dynamic. I don't know, but let's talk more about you and Tyler fighting.
Yeah. So you have that first vote. Matt plays his shots in the dark. It goes off because he plays 6. He's immune. So we end up with the tie of you, Rachel, and Danny. And you aren't even allowed the pitcher defend yourselves. This is just happening, right? And thankfully, Danny goes home on a 3-2 vote, and this is when chaos erupts for you.
Oh my god, I was pissed, Steven. I was like, okay, like I just made this stupid move, so that played a part in it because I was like, okay, now my parents are gonna laugh in my face when they're watching this with me. Because I watched Survivor with my dad, and I'm always being like, oh, I'm such a dumb player. So that I knew that was going to happen. And then for me to get a rogue vote, I was like surprised. And then honestly, at the revote, I thought I was done. I was like, they could send me home when I had like 5 keys in my pocket.
I kind of thought you were done too, because I did not expect Mackenzie to vote with me and John. I knew me and John were voting Danny. I knew Tyler and Jamie were voting you. But I had no idea where Mackenzie was going. So I also thought you were done, and I was prepared to have to not be happy.
Yeah, that was such a weird move. I just don't understand that. Like, I told John, I was like, John, if you wanted Danny out, why not just rogue vote Danny? Because you voted me, and then you voted Danny. So I'm just like, why not just Danny since the beginning?
Danny is a better. I think Danny. When the opportunity arose, Danny was just a better target than you, which was helpful.
And I was okay with that, honestly. I was like, that's what I wanted to happen. I didn't want to be public enemy number 1. I wanted to kind of be middle of the road, middle of the ground, and pick up endgame from like 7 to like 4, ideally, is how I usually play the orgs, at least, that I play and win. That's where I pick up my endgame, start making resume building moves. Didn't get that chance, clearly. But yeah, I don't know. It was. And then Tyler and I fighting.
Yeah, so Tyler, I forget exactly how. Does Tyler just reveal to you, hey, I voted for you, or you ask him, he says I voted for you? How does this come out? How does this come out?
It was such a weird conversation because he was feeding me like loopholes. He was like, well, I didn't vote for you technically because I only voted you at a revote. I'm like, this is not girl math. Like, we're not like playing this like theoretic game. Like, oh, well, I didn't vote you the first time, so you can't be mad at me. And I was like, dude, you still put my name down. Like, you expect me to not be upset when you literally were saying all these things about how you had my back and then screwed me out of nowhere for no reason because you were afraid of my keys. I'm like, does a piece of metal have more substance to your game than a loyal ally? That's how it came across to me. So I was heated about it. And I'm like, and part of it was just like, own it. If you want to make that move against me, I love Survivor. I can respect a good move. I can respect a good play. But I'm just like, you're not taking any sort of accountability or ownership for the move that you made. And you were just beating around the bush about, oh, well, I didn't mean it like that. Like, I didn't think you were going to get, you know what I mean? It was just like, own it, stand on business.
Yeah, and I also wanted to fight Tyler that round, but once you started, I was like, I'm gonna let them go after each other. And I know I verbalized this to multiple people. I was like, we need to keep Brady and Tyler in as long as possible because they're just gonna keep fighting. But like, I remember, so in that tribal council, me, Mackenzie, and John. So John and I were beside each other, and Mackenzie was like in between us in front. After the votes are read and Danny goes, I like whispered to them, I was like, who did y'all vote for? And both of them were like, we voted Danny. And I was like, Tyler voted Brady? Tyler comes up to me and he's like, Drew, you didn't stick to the backup plan. And I was like, what was the backup plan? Because when Tyler got up to vote, he looked at me and he was like, do the backup plan.
I heard that.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't care what it means even. I know who I'm voting. But I went to Tyler. I was like, did you vote Brady? He's like, yeah, Brady was the backup plan. Remember when we were on the previous tribe, Brady was our backup plan if we decided to not vote out Seth. And I was like, oh, okay. And then Brady was informed, and that's how it all kicked off.
No, actually, that just like reminded me, like, I think that's when I knew that he was writing my name down before the vote because you guys were sitting right near me and he was completely ignoring me when I was like, what's the backup plan? Like, what's the backup plan? And he kept yelling at you, do the backup plan, do the backup plan. It's the backup. And it just like kept trying to reinforce it to him. And I'm like, what the hell is the backup plan? Like, why can't you just say the name out loud? Like, I didn't know that there was a backup plan. And then I knew, I'm like, Danny was never going to get voted on chaos. So I was like, oh, and we weren't supposed to talk at that point. So yeah. I was like holding it together, like trying not to pop off and like make myself a bigger target before votes were being cast. So at that point, I was just a sitting duck.
Yeah, and John and Mackenzie were asking me like, what is he talking about, the backup plan? I was like, oh, he means to vote Danny because at camp before tribal, I was telling everyone I wanted Danny out. So Tyler wants us to vote Danny.
So if Tyler had come to you after the vote and said, yes, Brady, I voted for you. I saw opportunity. I took a shot. I missed. I'm sorry. Like, would you have responded better to that if he was just like upfront?
Absolutely. I wouldn't have worked with him moving forward. Do I think I still would have popped off a little bit? Yes, but I feel like it wouldn't have been dragged on as long because the issue after the initial, hey, you like screwed me was, why aren't you owning it? Like, just take accountability for the move. So that was where I was getting heated because I'm like, you already made the move. Like, the writing's on the wall. Like, I see what happened. Like, you don't need to hide it. So that's kind of where that kind of played into it, I guess.
Well, this is a wild tribal council just to watch from the shed with Melanie.
I know. I can imagine.
You have your shots in the dark. You're telling everyone, I am playing my shots in the dark. Is there a world where you just don't? Because everyone thinks you will, and therefore isn't going to vote for you as a result?
You know, I've played out so many like theoretical situations that I had since that happened. And that definitely was something I wish I did. That was like my one regret in the game is I should have held it. And it would have been smarter to hold it. But I feel like at that same time, I just got scared with that. I literally would have went home by one vote. So at that point, I was just in survival mode. So I was like, I just need to make sure I get myself through one more round. That was too close for comfort. So at this point, I'm playing this as security. Like we saw in Survivor 46, if you have something and you feel uncertain, play it. So that's what I did. I'm happy that I played it. And even if I wasn't getting votes for it, I think it was the safest bet. And I feel like most people probably would have done something similar if they were in that position.
No souvenirs for you.
No souvenirs for me, unfortunately.
Because because I was thinking about this, like, well, you know, if you kept your shots in the dark and you're at the final 7 with them, maybe that causes you to be a target at this point. You're forced to play them then. But like maybe then you're able to dictate things more. So maybe Matt does go home instead of Mackenzie. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, part of the issue was that there was that strong little group that I wasn't a part of and that I didn't really know was happening. So I was kind of on the outs in that anyways.
Are you talking about John, Tyler, Rachel?
And Mackenzie and Drew.
Yeah, the 5 that I was like ride or die with, it was me, Mackenzie, Rachel, John, Tyler, which leaves, of the final 7, it leaves out Brady and Matt.
Yeah, so at that point I was just like, I don't know. Like, I feel like at 7, like theoretically, yeah, I could have played them and held on to them, but I'm also not sure. Like, I didn't get votes at 7. I'm not sure if I would have gotten votes at 7 if I didn't play them. But at the same time, they knew I had them and they probably thought I was going to play them then. So I don't even really know how that would have panned out, to be honest. And what frustrates me the absolute most is that, oh my God, because there was an idol hidden in the game at one point at like final 6, I think.
We don't know yet. We haven't seen anything in the episodes that talk about that.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I thought we got there. So there was at one point where I'm literally searching for idols, can't find any idols, and looking in tree stumps, looking everywhere, like trying to find something because I know I'm on rock bottom at this point. I don't have any more souvenirs, don't have anything, can't find anything, and I'm just heated over it because at that point, I'm like, okay, this is like an advantage-free game. Like, there's nothing else going on, nothing else happening. And it just got to a point where I just kind of felt defeated. People weren't really having the same conversations that they were having me in terms of the game, the rounds before, the rounds prior. People weren't really doing a good job at concealing the relationships and what was happening. So at that point, I was just kind of like, okay, like, at this point, I'm pretty sure I'm going home.
I felt like at the Mackenzie vote, I was like confident that Matt was going out. I was like so sure Matt was going out, and I was like, oh, I was like, I'm set up well either way because I can either go with this like John, Tyler, Rachel side of things, or I can go with this like Mackenzie, Brady kind of Rachel-ish side of things. So I was like, this is perfect. Matt's gonna go out here. Everybody was like super solid on that. Me and you were flabbergasted when the Mackenzie votes were read. We both looked at each other and we were like, why did you flip? Like we were so confident that each other flipped.
So confident. That was the vote I was the most surprised by. Actually, that's not true. I'm so embarrassed. Like, I was so end game for me. I was just so out of it. I was out of the funk because I had such a good social standing up until I feel like that double. Yeah, I was just so confused by that vote. And I initially thought, Drew, that you did it. I was like, this grimy, slimy snake. And then to find out that you didn't do it. And like, I looked at your face and I was like, oh, okay. Like, he looks confused. And it wasn't like you're like fake crying or anything like that. I was like, he genuinely is like about it. So that was just one of those things that I was completely taken aback by. And I let Tyler have it.
Yeah, so, and that's kind of when you and I were like, well, it's over. We've got to figure out what to do because...
Right. It's been fun. Honestly, the season ended the same week Survivor 46 ended. I think it was very, historic for that. But yeah, at that point, I knew I was in trouble. I knew I was in big trouble.
Well, I want to walk back a bit to the start of that last day, final 7. Looking at the 7 players remaining, you, Mackenzie, Drew, Tyler, Rachel, John, and Matt. Did you have an ideal final 3, or just like, hey, any final 3 with me in it is good enough for me?
No, I definitely had an ideal final 3. I think that for me, I was looking at hopefully like a Tyler and a Rachel, I think was my ideal final 3. I'm a pretty notorious FTC speaker. That's what I'm known for in orgs, in the Instagram community. I'm known as the FTC flipper. I flip votes. That's what I do. So going into a final tribal council, I legitimately did not feel like I needed to play the best game. I genuinely felt like I probably could outspeak a lot of people. So it was a matter of me getting to the end with people that I knew didn't play a lot better than me, but I feel like it was a pretty equal playing field. And I feel like players like Drew and players like John, I feel like the jury might have been a little bit more receptive to than me. So it was kind of trying to find players that I feel like kind of were on the same playing field as me.
Yeah, so in that case, let's say Matt goes home at 7. If you had an ideal boot order, is it what? Mackenzie at 6, John at 5, Drew at 4?
To me, it felt like me, Brady, and Mackenzie were on the same wavelength at Final 7. So if Matt had gone out at 7, I would have pushed probably for John and Tyler to be the next 2 out.
Brady, what would you have wanted?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at 7, probably 7 would be Matt. I'd say 6 would probably be John. 5, I would say I'd probably want Mackenzie gone before Drew, just because I feel like Mackenzie had a better social standing with a lot of the jurors than Drew did. So I'd say Mackenzie at 5 and then Drew at 4, ideally, I think was how I would want it to play out. But I wouldn't want a hand in sending Drew home. I'd want it to be like, oh, Drew, no. You know what I mean?
Much like how Drew was like, I'm not voting Brady this round. I don't want Brady mad at me. And Brady goes home, it's not. My hands are free of blood.
We are going to have to talk about that because there is some debate on was I loyal to Brady or not. And the question is, I don't know.
I don't know either.
Because there is not a single time in the game that I was actively like, yeah, we need to vote Brady out. I never voted for Brady when Brady's name came up. Early in the game, I was like, absolutely not. But later in the game, once Mackenzie got voted out, it was kind of like, well, I don't really have an option because John and Tyler are not voting each other. Nobody wanted to vote out Rachel at that point because I think the view of Rachel was that she might be a final tribal council goat. And then Matt had won immunity at 6. So I was like, I kind of just have to play along.
Yeah, that's definitely what it was for you. But I don't know. It was just one of those things that was like difficult to pan out. And like also what pissed me off was that on the way out, none of the jurors who knew that they were related said anything. I was just like, I'm a messy ass bitch. If these people got me out, I'm airing out everyone's dirty laundry. I absolutely would have said something. But so I was very surprised that we had 2 jurors who knew about it get sent out and didn't say anything. I was like, the game would have been flipped on its head if that information got out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I when we talked to Danny let it know that they were like, yeah, like had I realized how I was voted out would have happened, I would have aired things on my way out, but I didn't because I thought something else had happened. It wasn't until as the juror rolled in, I realized how that vote went down.
I would have done it anyways.
Had I known earlier in the game that they were brothers, I think that I would have very strongly pushed for Tyler to go out instead of Seth.
Was that 100% would have happened? I think, if we both knew that. Yeah, I think that it would have changed the trajectory of the game, absolutely. But no, if I knew that information and then I got sent out, I don't care if they had my back. I'm airing that information out. Like, I want to see people play. I want this end game to be so messy. Like, I want there to be blood hanging, like, in every part of you, under your elbows, in your armpits, under your legs. Like, I want blood everywhere. I want a messy ass end game, Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about your journey before this episode?
I mean,
I was told, 2 people have told me specifically to ask if there are any audience or chat questions. And they told me that when I ask that, there will be questions typed in the chat. So if you have any questions for Brady, please type them in the chat. Continue.
Stop, I'm scared. Oh my gosh. No, but yeah, I mean, I'm just proud of myself. I mean, coming into my first Survivor game.
Well, John is prepared. So let's read this. So John V's question. Hey, Brady, big fan. I love your gameplay confessionals all season. Would you mind getting measuring tape? Because there have been rumors that you're shorter than John V and the people want to know.
You're such a midget. You're such an asshole, John V. I'm literally, next time I see you, like, it's got to be like Princess Daisy with Toad. I'm going to kick you, like full on kick you into Donkey Kong world, because I'm not even sure what type of question that is. You need to be removed from the StreamYard, removed from the YouTube, most likely blocked. yeah, that's how I feel about that question. I think that
I guess follow-up question, is the beef more between you and John or you and Tyler?
that's such a fun question.
Oh, John has a follow-up.
Would you marry or divorce Tyler or John V?
I have to marry one and divorce the other.
Marry one. You're divorcing one to marry the other.
Okay. Well, I'm a girl's girl through and through, and Taylor is my sister for life. I don't know Tyler's girlfriend, so I have less of an allegiance to her. So I'm marrying Tyler, divorcing John, because John, you are not taller than me, baby. I can't marry someone that's like half my height. Are you kidding? That's criminal.
Let's talk about this episode. If John has any more questions, I'm sure we'll see them. So we get this follow-up from the McKinsey vote where we see you and Tyler going at it again.
Hold on, no,
we have another question.
Do you know the difference between your left and your right? This seems important, Brady.
This seems very targeted.
You know what? I'm like really disappointed because I can do the splits. I can put my legs behind my head. I can do all of that weird shit. So I was pissed when I lost that because I was like, I could have literally easily won it. This was my challenge to win. Like I literally do jump splits. I was the most flexible person left.
Was that what happened this challenge? Did you use
yes!
the wrong lip? I don't think I realized that.
It was so embarrassing because I was in like this like thong bikini, like under my sweatshirt. Devontae was standing behind me, like full on, like looking at my butt cheeks, like fully out. Camera was recording behind me. Honestly, I thought I was doing some adult photo shoot at that point because that's how it came across and what it felt like. Devontae was giggling behind me and was like, "What of you?" And then I was distracted because I'm like, okay, like my whole butt is out and there's like 6 production members standing behind me. Like if they want to see that, I'm going to charge them $10 for it. So that threw me off big time for sure.
Oh my gosh. I had a really bad moment in that challenge too. So the entire previous day when it was raining, I was wearing compression shorts as underwear. And so they were soaking wet. So they were drying. And I was also like, I'm not wearing my underwear in a flexibility challenge. So all I had on was sweatpants. And there was a point in that challenge where Casey walks by me and he goes, "Drew, are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm so sorry. Just don't have any camera people on me. There's a lot going on right now. It's not a good situation."
And that's when he should have asked me for one of my tuck it up songs. I would be like, "I got you, Drew."
But yeah, so we do this challenge. Both of us, Brady, I remember when we saw this challenge, we like looked at each other and we were like, okay, one of us is winning this. Like,
right, exactly.
Wrong.
Wrong, very wrong, very incorrect, not even close to the truth. Didn't even make the top 2, literally was second out. I was like, this is embarrassing. I'm going to actually go climb under a literal rock now.
Did you notice that when me, you, Rachel, and Tyler were out of the challenge, that me, you, and Rachel were in a huddle the whole time talking strategy and Tyler was standing by himself?
As it should be, though. That's literally how the final 6 rounds should have played out, I feel like. Pissed that it wasn't. But no, that was so funny because there was literal strategizing going on at the challenge. So while people were still in, that was like the level of like chaoticness that was happening up at that point in the game because people were still hung up on the tribal that just happened earlier with Mackenzie. So people were just all over the place.
I want to go back to right after the tribal council, right, to where we see you and Drew like get like, "Tyler, what just happened?" and confront Tyler. I mean, I think the answer were like, you know, Tyler was the only person who had up Mackenzie. We had John, Rachel, Matt. Why was Tyler the one earning y'all's ire at that point?
Because from my perspective, I felt at that time like my closest allies were Mackenzie and Brady and then John, but like on opposite sides. So like in my mind, I'm like, well, John just like went with the majority. And John was like, I did not head up this vote. Tyler did. And then obviously there was a pre-existing beef between Brady and Tyler. Also, hi, Dina. I love you.
Yes, Dina, sequester mother. No, yeah. I mean, Tyler was just the one that kept screwing me. Like, I don't know. I guess I had like a soft spot for like Rachel and John V. I was just like, oh. And I already screwed Rachel at that point. So it was like, I can't even be mad at her. I wrote her name down already. Like, So at that point, it was just like whatever with Rachel. And then with John, I was just like, the way he explained it to me, he's like, no, it's all good. Like, it was just like a last minute thing, I swear. And me being gullible and naive, I was like, okay. And then with Tyler, though, I was like, Tyler was telling me this completely different story about how he knew and how this was a concocted plan, where John was like, I was put into this last second. So it was just two different stories that were being told to me. And Tyler told a story that in a way that made me, that garnered less sympathy from me, I think is the best way to put it.
And also it didn't help that like Tyler was trying to throw me under the bus, but I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna agree to. So there was this whole like 3-2-1 plan that I came up.
What was that about?
That I came up with. So if you watch the previous episode, my plan was let's just all vote Matt. If Matt plays keys, it doesn't matter. We can vote out whoever after. If Matt doesn't play keys, then he just votes for Brady and it's irrelevant. But then everybody else was like, well, shouldn't we split the votes on Matt and Brady? So if Matt plays keys, Brady goes out. And I'm like, sure, sounds good. But somehow it ended up being my plan.
Right. I mean, you were pushing it a little bit.
I was pushing it a little bit.
But no, I mean, when I saw that, I went to my Snapchat right away and I looked up Drew's username because I was like, Drew, like, do you want to explain this little clip that I saw? And I like screen grabbed it. I was like, hey, Drew.
Yeah, no, and that's very fair. At that point, I felt super locked in with my 5. And then there was you and Matt. And I was like, yeah, sure, we can split the votes on Matt and Brady. They're not in the 5. That makes sense. Cool, let's do it. Little did I know, Tyler went up to Matt, John, and Rachel and was like, don't listen to anybody else. We're voting Mackenzie.
Yeah, and I was like watching it back and I was like, this man like needs to be put away because the nerve of that man to go around yelling plans at everyone and people were just like, okay. I was like, what the hell? Like, people are just letting this man like free for all blabber, lie, spew random crap, and people are just gonna, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. What? Like, it was just crazy to watch back. I was actually flabbergasted.
Well, and we do see that Matt tries to push back against it because Matt's like, I think we should do Rachel here instead, which is wild. But
right?
Yeah. So then let's go back to this episode. So you blow up at Tyler. Tyler's like, but it was Drew's idea. He threw out the 3-2-1. And I'm like, yeah, I was in a conversation where that was mentioned. What else am I going to be like? No, we can't do that when there are 5 of us talking in a group discussion.
Right.
So we get to this challenge. We flop. Daddy Matt wins immunity.
Which I think is maybe worst case scenario for you, Brady, is Matt winning that immunity.
Literally worst case scenario, absolute worst case scenario. Because I was like, okay, as long as Matt doesn't win, I can make it to 5. I'll be good. Because he was public enemy number 1. I feel like at that point, at least that was my perception.
Well, Matt and Tyler have gotten relatively close over the past few episodes. We see this moment where they're like, yeah, I know we argued, but for some reason I'm drawn to working with you, so let's do it.
It's just confusing.
Props to them. To them.
Yeah, it seemed like gameplay-wise, Matt is working with John and Tyler. Now, how long will John and Tyler take him to the end? I don't know. I was texting John and it sounded like he was like, yeah, I'd bet out Drew or Matt next, maybe. But I'm something I've been thinking about, like, was this Matt's best decision? Should he have flipped on John, Tyler, and Rachel, or was just like, hey, with a group of 6, I'm not deadlocking, I'm not going to rocks?
Unfortunately, I think I ruined that plausibility because you see Brady and I having a discussion where I'm like, well, there are 6 of us. We can't vote Matt. We know Tyler won't vote with us, and we know Matt won't vote with us. So we have to get one of or both of John and Rachel. And by that time, I was like, actually, Brady, you're going to have to get both John and Rachel because I'm playing 5 keys.
And I was like, fuck you. What a good ally you are. Like,
well, and that's because I had heard that Rachel wanted to vote me out. Like, we hear Rachel in multiple confessionals being like, we have to get Drew. We have to get Drew.
And this is also, note, the last time you can play shots in the dark or use them the cash in for various advantages. So, like, it makes sense. Like, I have 2 shots in the dark. I hear my name being thrown out there. Why not?
Right. I mean, it definitely made sense to play. Like, I would have done the same thing, especially because you heard your name. but I was just like, ugh, I'm gonna have to like fend for myself, like literally like going against like all. It felt like I was like literally like a human being in like a cage, like in a caged off exhibit at the zoo with like a bunch of lions and I was like dangling meat in front of them and they were all like trying to come at me. Like that's literally what it felt like. So I was just like, okay. And then Drew was like the zoo worker who was like in the camera room, like watching, but like didn't do anything. Cause he was like, I'm good. I don't need to do this. Like they're paying me like
It's a me game, not a we game.
So I would have done the same exact damn thing if I was him. I would have been like, I'm gonna take a step back. Like I've been a hot topic for these people for a couple rounds. Let them do their thing. Make one of them emerge as a bigger target, and just let myself lay low.
Yeah, like Steven said, that this round I had it in that discussion with you. I said, sorry, I have to switch to me game here. There's no more Wii game. Nintendo has been removed from the equation. There are no more Wii games.
Not Nintendo. No,
like
yeah.
I will say there was another move that we made this round that I wish had been discussed a little bit more on camera. So me, you, Tyler, and Rachel have dropped out of the challenge. It's down to just John and Matt. And in that discussion with me, you, and Rachel says, I need a big move. I have to have a move on my resume. And Rachel tells me that she's not going to vote me. So in my head, I'm like, okay, that leaves maybe like Matt and John as like big moves. So you and I in our conversations with John are like, hey, Rachel threw out your name. And we see that play out a little bit where John gets really paranoid and Tyler's like, stop being paranoid. Rachel sees that you're paranoid. Matt sees that you're paranoid. Stop. And he's like, but Rachel's saying my name. So we did do that at least.
We did something. No, that was definitely something that played out. I remember another thing that wasn't shown on camera. This is a little tea for some of you guys watching, is that so it was my birthday, the day I got voted out after the Twister challenge, giving production a different type of cake during that challenge. But so I get a card, like 2 or 3 different cards from like 3 different jurors and like a bracelet. And instead of handing it to me, they give it to Rachel to give to me. So I'm like, okay, that's fucking terrible, because now people are going to look at that and be like, oh, like she got like cards wishing her happy birthday from the jury. Like the jury likes her. So I'm like, so that like made me a little bit nervous, because I was like, okay, like that might put an even bigger target on my back. So I was nervous about that playing out too.
Yeah, some of the things that stood out to me this round, and we'll talk about the coin stuff a little later. It stood out to me when like you and Daddy Matt talked, and it was such a perfunctory short conversation, or just like, wow, you know, Brady has to walk out like, yeah, he's writing my name down.
I like Matt. Matt was like, I'm gonna go eat lunch.
That man and his snacking throughout the season needs to be studied, because that was. He honestly, I think he applied for the wrong show. I'm not sure why he wasn't on like Food Network or like Chopped or something, because that man was putting together so many different concoctions with what we had. I'm like, we have cheese and like chips, and like, how are you making like this like guacamole? Like, it was just like, it was so funny.
Oh, I, as a viewer, have a question. In a confessional, so we have the double tribal round, and then we wake up the next morning and we get a confessional from you where you're like, yeah, we all had grilled cheeses last night. Some people should not be allowed to cook. The people want to know who you are referring to.
Baby, all I'm going to say is, if the shoe fits, lace that bitch up. That's all I'm going to say on that. But I definitely think that there are some people, who got a little bit too excited to be cooking when maybe they should have, I don't know, been like tending to the fire or something else. You know, maybe something a little bit more productive, if you will. Because my grilled cheese was not adequate.
Yeah, mine was not great.
But an inadequate grilled cheese it's burnt. Is that what it is at that point, or is it undercooked?
So first of all, we had to use vegan bacon. And second of all, the cheese had been sitting out at like outdoor room temp all day while it was raining.
I mean, fire solves all problems, but I don't know about that.
It was weird. The texture was weird. The middle of my sandwich was soggy. I was like, don't know what's happening here. Like, got wet bread.
But somehow it was like the best food I'd ever had at the same time. It was like awful, but great.
It was disgusting.
But anyways,
don't agree.
Back to the round at hand. You and Matt have this conversation where you're kind of like, what you want to do? And he's like, I don't know. And you're both kind of like, yeah, this isn't going to happen. Let's just not put on the charade.
Yeah. Matt gave me nothing, and I wasn't giving him anything either. It was a mutual thing, I think. But at that point, it was like he lied to me a couple times about the votes. I voted him a couple times and lied to him about it. So it was more so just like we're this far into the game. It's going to be hard to start building a foundation of trust when there's literally 6 people left in the game. And he already has other relationships that are much stronger with other people. So at that point, it was just like, is there anything I can do? And then based off that conversation, I was trying to gauge where his head was at. And it just seemed like it was kind of a lost cause at that point. So I was just like, let me call it for what it is. Like, I'm not going to spend time trying to convince someone who's pretty locked in when I feel like there's other people who are more likely to flip in my favor than him.
I want to talk about the coins right now. So Casey reveals a twist saying, like, not going to tell you what they're for, but hidden around your camp are pouches with coins in them. These will come to play at the Final Four Immunity Challenge somehow. You'll need to figure out whether you want to collect these or strategize, but your time is yours to spend. Of course, we got one of my favorite scenes where Tyler just books it while everyone else just kind of like slowly walks off behind him. But we heard Drew's strategy in game, which is like, not going to bother. One literally has to be right in front of him for him to grab it. You seem to be taking a more active role in this and potentially using him as a currency to strategize with. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, so coming in at this point, I knew my name was going to be on the chopping block, and I heard that there was an advantage for a Final Four possibly. And at that point, in my opinion, and my perspective of the whole thing was, I need any advantage I can get. I knew I was in trouble. So for me, I was having these conversations, but I was also walking around, and I found all the keys that I found were hidden some places. So I was pretty good with finding things, I feel like, in the game. So for me, what my thought process is, okay, like if I can use these maybe possibly as leverage for someone's vote, say someone who maybe could only find 2 sacks, I had like 7. So for me, that was kind of like the lens that I was kind of trying to look at it through, of kind of like a tip for tat, kind of like a mutualistic like type of, not even sure if that's a word, but like a mutual like back scratch essentially.
Yep. So did you talk with Tyler, Rachel, or John saying, hey, if I get this round, I can deliver to 4 coins? Was that something you were saying?
I feel like it definitely was something. So I definitely had a conversation with at least 1 or 2 people about it. I don't think I had that conversation with everyone because I'm also didn't want to lie to people and be like, oh, I'm going to give you this.
Overpromise.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Because that could just easily come back to bite me in the butt. I definitely did have that conversation with a couple people, though. I forget exactly who it was, but I definitely did have those conversations.
Do you remember what happened between us with the coins when you got voted out?
Yes.
Yeah, and I was not happy, but it's fair. So Brady gets voted out, and like right after the last vote for her is read, she's standing up to get her torch, and I look over her and I say, "Give me your coins."
So greedy, by the way.
And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "Give me your coins." And so she gives me all like 35 million of her coins. And I'm like, heh. And then like right after tribal ended, Casey comes up to me and he's like, hey, she gave you those after the last vote for her was read. So she was technically out of the game. So they don't count for you. So you have to give them back.
So sorry about that one.
But yeah, I was convinced that the coins would be used to buy supplies for a Final Four fire making challenge, where it would be like all 4 of us would be making fire and the first one to finish won immunity, but you could use them to buy supplies. We'll see if I'm correct or not. But I was like, I don't need to worry about this. I can make fire. I did not at any point ever see Tyler, John, Rachel really being big fire people. So in my mind, I was like, I just have to worry about Matt. So, and I also didn't want to make myself a bigger threat that round. So I was just like, I'm playing 5 keys. I'm just going to talk to people and it'll be fine.
Did you have any theories, Brady?
Honestly, I didn't really care. The way that I just thought was, advantage. Like, not sure how this is going to play out. But I knew a lot of people in this game, a lot of their games were kind of advantage driven in terms of the moves that they wanted to make. So for me, I just wanted to take full advantage of that. Honestly, I think I may have tried to oversell it to some people. I'm like, maybe this is like your straight ticket to the end. Like, what if you get to like pick everyone who you go to the end with? Like, just trying to over exaggerate things to try and maybe make it more appealing to people. But I didn't really care what it was, and I didn't really know what it was either. So for me, I was just trying to go to full dramatics to try and get people to kind of see the appeal of it.
We get some final confessions from you talking about the importance of representation, and concerns like why I don't want to vote for Rachel because I feel like we voted a whole list of a female or trans players leading up to this point, and just kind of the concerns around that. Can you talk about your thoughts on representation? Do you feel like you did a good job in yeah, I'll stop there.
No, yeah, I mean, it definitely was hard because for me, it's like I was trying to represent for a marginalized community because we've never seen a trans woman on Survivor. So for me, like wanting to go in, like my goal was to uplift and like show people, like even like viewers, like I've had trans people who like watched Bloomington like reach out to me, which is so freaking cool. And for me, like that was, if I could affect one or two people and make them be like, hey, like maybe I can apply for the real show, or hey, this makes me want to play an LRG. If that trans person can do it, I can too. Like that means everything to me. So to hear people have those feelings, it honestly was so gratifying, and it was worth more than the win to me. But I mean, I think the representation aspect of it was definitely hard because what I was trying to stand for was giving representation to voices that we haven't really seen on the show. And for me, for example, with the Jamie vote, that was so difficult for me because it was going against what I was trying to advocate for and stand for. But at the same time, I knew it was the move that made the most sense for my game. So it was such a difficult decision to make with the whole mind over matter and head over heart type of decision. So it was difficult. And like when it just got down to me and Rachel being the only two females left in the game, it was just a matter of like literally the last couple people have all been women, femme presenting, non-binary people. So for me, it was like, okay, like, do I want to continue this pattern, or do I want to see something else happen, or to take one of these guys out? So it was definitely a hard decision, but at the same time, like I knew deep down I wasn't going to let gender affect my game, because that's doing a disservice to the social strategy aspect of the game that we all love so much. So it was definitely like a hard thing to kind of balance.
So is there anything else about that strategy time you want to talk about, or do you feel like walking the tribal council, you're just like, I think I'm done here?
I knew I was done. I knew like before we even left, like halfway through, the energy was off. Vibes were off. People weren't really talking to me.
I threw Brady's name out to her.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah. Like,
yeah. So it was like the consensus seemed to be, from what people were telling me, like I knew my name was out there, but like people knew not to vote for me. So the discussion was Brady or Tyler, Brady or Tyler. So every person I was going up to asking like, so are you leading Brady or Tyler? I go up to Brady and I'm like, so do you think we should vote Brady or Tyler? And Brady's like, what? And I was like, well, sorry, I just said your name because you were the person I was talking to. I meant Rachel.
It's literally the second time this season that's happened to me too.
The other thing that I want to mention from this strategy time is when John and I are talking and we're like debating jury threats or what, like who's a jury threat.
This is my favorite, one of my favorite parts of the whole episode.
Yeah,
and we're trying to one up each other about like, no, they hate me more. No, they hate me more. It's
like,
yeah, and then like, so John and I have that discussion, and at the end of it, I'm like walking away, and I turn around, and I'm like, I swear I'm not going to tell anybody else about this conversation. Hard cut. So John just told me as I'm telling Brady everything. I at least tried to give her info.
No, exactly. Like, and I was just like, okay, yeah. Because at that point there wasn't much I could do. Like, I think one of my bad moves in the game, of many besides the whole key gate or whatever you want to call it, was writing Rachel's names on at the merch vote and telling her, because that kind of blew up our relationship and it just imploded from there. So that definitely didn't come into that wasn't handy at all at Final Six, because she was kind of done and over with that. She's like, you already wrote my name down, why would I vote you over other people who have shown they had my back? So at that point I was like, well, this sucks.
This was such an interesting episode for Rachel, I feel, because Rachel really is very vocal in her confessionals about, like, I feel like every time I say a plan, everybody's like, cool, but I like my own plan better. And Rachel's really wishing that people would specifically John, would finally just like lock in with her plan. We see Rachel this episode really being like, Drew. But John, Tyler, Matt are kind of like, no, we're doing Brady. And Rachel, I mean, what is Rachel going to do? Say, no, I'm going to be the only one to vote Drew? Like, Rachel's not in a great position this episode, and she's very vocal about it, specifically in the voting booth, which we'll talk about in a second.
It was an interesting episode for her.
Brady, you're talking about or do you have any, looking back at your game, were there other things you changed or do differently, or are those the major ones that come to mind?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I definitely thought about was I was hyper fixated on my relationships with Drew and Tyler, that I didn't take as much time that I probably should have to build relationships with people like Rachel and Daddy Matt and people like Little Matt and just Mackenzie. We didn't get close till the round she went. So for me, I feel like I was so comfortable with the relationships that I had up until that point that I didn't really look bigger picture and see these other relationships that I could have garnered that may have been votes for me to stay and may have segued into it not being me and it being somebody else.
This won't help you, but here's what Matt says: if I had known that Brady would have voted for Drew, I would have been in. Funny to hear Rachel wanted that too. This could have been a 3-2 vote with Drew going home, maybe in some.
I didn't even know that this was a thing going on. If I would have known, Drew, no offense, but if it protected me, then I would have probably been like, ugh.
I think that made sense. That would make sense for you to have flipped on me there. I would have been mad for like 30 minutes, but I would have been like, yeah, that makes sense. I think the other option, the only other thing probably that we as a duo could have changed is that round. I probably should have been like, Brady, fake that you have keys.
Yeah.
Or something. I don't know.
I mean, I could have, I guess. But also,
like, what are they going to do? I don't know. I feel like those three of Rachel, John, Tyler were not going to break up. So,
yeah.
Tricky situation to be in. It definitely was a series of actions and mistakes from my part that put me into that position. But I mean, at that point, but I feel like it was also like other relationships that played a part in it too. So I feel like it was like a culmination of quite a few things.
Yeah.
I want to talk about, Drew, your vote at tribal council. You go to tribal council, you say like, I know I'm going home, I'm playing these shots. You play your shots, and you take your one bag you found, you drop it, and say this is the next person, then you go. And I don't know like if there's editing order, but it seems like there's at least 2 people who vote before Matt comes and finds the bag of coins you drop.
So Brady was beside me. So Brady was the person to vote after me. I was 100% convinced that I was going out. I thought everyone was going to vote for me except for Brady. I was pretty confident Brady was going to vote for Tyler. And I thought that the other 4 were all going to vote for me. So because Brady was the next person to vote, I was like, if I go out this round, I want Brady to have my coins. So I dropped my bag on the ground. I should have set it on the table, but I dropped.
I don't know, like told me.
And I was like,
at least John and Rachel had a plan at a line saying, if John's like, if I find the keys, I'm gonna put them here, and like.
Well, and unfortunately, I didn't think about doing that until I was in like walking to the voting booth. So the only time I would have been as we were walking past each other. But I was like, if I go out here, which I'm pretty sure I'm going to, I had no faith that my 2 and 6 was going to go off. I was like, I want Brady to have these coins rather than them being useless and going out of the game. And I was like, best case, if somehow Brady and I both stay, Brady would probably just give them back to me. And I wouldn't have had the expectation that you would, but I was hoping that you would.
I would not have, no.
That which would have been, I would have been like, yeah, that's fine.
No.
My plan was, I'm going out here. I was fully convinced Brady should have these while I'm going out. And then, of course, Brady ends up overstepping them, and somebody else ends up. Of course, I know. And then Matt finds them.
Yeah, and like Matt's just like, "Oh, cool, great!" It was just such a delightful moment for him. Just like, "Huh, I wonder how this got here."
You really think I'd remember finding keys at a tribal council? Like, did you not see the double? You should have known right then and there. I'm not going to bring keys anywhere I go. I'm not going to find keys at tribal council. I'm not going to acknowledge keys until it's literally brought up to me by production. So
Drew, like I wish Drew had kept track of how many keys like have been found and where, because like is this key like keys 4 and 5 that John has found at like the voting booth? Because it's impressive how many keys he has scrounged up looking.
Yeah,
for.
one thing I want to do on a rewatch is I want to keep a track of how long people's confessionals are, as opposed to just how many they got.
Time.
And then 2, I want to keep track of who has how many keys when and where they find it.
I would love to see a key tracker added to your spreadsheet that I'm still monitoring.
I will try.
Yeah, so not much else to talk about. We see John find 2 keys. He does not leave them for Rachel. We hear more about this in the voting confessionals. And it's a kind of it's a dog pile with 5 votes on Brady.
With an extra vote too. I'm like, damn, like way to just twist the knife.
Rachel really wanted to make sure you went home there.
She's like, this girl needs to go.
Yeah, and Rachel kind of tears into John in her voting confessional, which is really interesting to me. Rachel goes on this like tangent or a rant even where she's like, you thought that you had all the power here, but I found this and I have the power here in reality. And it was very interesting because we had just gotten these confessionals back at camp of Rachel being like, I'm tired of doing what John and Tyler want and I want to do what I want. And then Rachel finds that key in the voting confessional and it's like, haha, I have the power now.
Her impression of John, not too terrible.
Oh, so funny.
It would have been sickening if she like put 1 vote on me and 1 vote on you. That would have been so iconic.
She could have.
Well, and I think that's what's interesting is all the strategy we're talking about, none of it involved extra votes, right? Because maybe the answer is like like the 2 of you go to Rachel, say, hey, Rachel, we have 2 keys, you have 3 keys. You want to make a move. We can enable this. Like maybe we did pitch it like that. I don't know. But like maybe there's a world that Rachel is tempted to say, oh wow, I can take out Matt or I can take out John and like I can take whoever I want. All it matters is like I'm dictating and actionizing and playing my extra votes. And of course, maybe then Rachel now is target number 1 next round because she just did the big thing.
I wonder if John, Matt, and Tyler vote Brady, if Rachel could have gotten Brady to vote me and then Rachel put 2 votes on me, it would have been a 3-3. And then when my shot didn't go off, they could have just voted me out on the revote. But yeah. I don't know.
So that would have been iconic.
Yeah, it would have been. But unfortunately, it didn't happen.
It's clear, like from John's voting confessional, that his voting is all this whole setup is like he thinks Rachel's going to come for him. He's like, if I do this at least prevents Rachel from getting the upper hand. She does not have the shots in the dark to play the extra vote. She won't have the numbers. At worst, it'll be a tie. Right? He's playing in a very strategic manner to prevent Rachel from 1-0 him.
And meanwhile, Rachel's not thrilled with John at the moment, but clearly Rachel is all in with John as far as allies. Rachel is more focused, it seems, on me at this time. So, as everyone should be.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely played super passively. Like I played so nice. I was such a loyal player. Like next time I play, like the second someone shows me any sign of distrust, like I'm gonna come back at you. You know, I'm definitely gonna play like, I don't know, because I was very naive for sure. And I was just like, oh, these people definitely have my back. Like I'm really lovable. I'm really pretty. Just kidding. But like, I was like, oh, I got this. Like, it's fine. So, and then in retrospect, I was like, oh, I'm going to be like the looks of the cast. And then I get there and I see Mackenzie and I'm like, oh, fuck this shit. So, and then I was like, I'm going to be like the funny person of the cast. And then I see Mackenzie and I'm like, fuck this shit. So it just kept going. So it was just one of those things where I was like, I played very passively and very nicely. And I didn't really prioritize myself. I was trying to prioritize other people. So I feel like that's definitely something I kind of regret doing.
So one thing that I thought was interesting is, we hear from Drew saying, I'm not going to vote Brady because Brady will carry a grudge and therefore not vote for me. And then you walk out again and say, I'm open to anyone. I don't carry grudges. I'm looking for the best game. Talking about your mentality as a juror and what you were looking for.
I've played orgs for 10 years. Literally started in the 5th grade with Total Drama Island, like Instagram games. I've had my fair share of bitter juries. I've had my fair share of victories. I've been a bitter juror, hate to admit it. But for me, I love Survivor. Survivor is one of my passions. And for me to not vote based off who I think played the best game and who I think should represent the season, I feel like is not only doing a disservice to the game that we all love, but doing a disservice to the entire cast and also production and the crew and the season that we just all fought our butts off in. So for me, like, you could burn me really bad, you could screw me, but at the end of the day, if you take ownership of your game and show that you have agency in the game, that's what all you need to do to get my vote. And if you did something that was messed up, apologize, take accountability. And I love this game, and I would never, ever, ever hold a grudge. And it breaks my heart still to see people in games be bitter jurors and not vote for who they think deserves to win. So I think definitely, like, that's kind of my perception of that.
And I think one thing you're saying is, like, experience helps them all, helps like moderate that feeling. Because I think you get voted out and you have this strong emotional reaction, just lost the game, and maybe potentially just hours later you need to say, well, who wins? And you just feel like, wow, that could have been me, and you might feeling hurt as a result. And I think, like you said, like, I've done this, I've been that, I don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah, I think something else that I've noticed in LRGs specifically, where it's a more condensed format, is the earlier jurors tend to be less bitter than the more recent jurors, because obviously, like, the person voted out at, like, right before the final tribal council has like 30 minutes to an hour to decompress. Mm-hmm. And, like, yeah, I can imagine that the earlier jurors who have had, a day or more to decompress, it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, this person I'm not thrilled with. I thought they were allied with me, but they were playing the game. So I think it's really good on you, Brady, that right after being voted out, you're in that confessional and you're like, no, I'm not going to be bitter. I think that shows really, really good maturity and able to displace like any feelings that you may have had.
For sure. And like, the only situation where I could ever consider being a bitter juror is if I feel like my emotions were played with, or if I feel like something crossed the line personally. I think those are the two strikes that I feel like are the two things in my rule book, whereas if you mess with me emotionally and just to a point where it's extreme, or if you personally cross me on a personal level, then those I will disregard everything I just said. I will be a bitter juror. But as long as you play a game, if you're cutthroat, if you blindside me, screw me out of the game, whatever, do what you have to do. I love this game. So I don't know. It's just not in me, Like, I've lost games 4-3 due to bitter juries 5-4. So to have that feeling, be like, I know I played the best game, but I lost because these jurors, like, I just couldn't do that to somebody personally.
Anything else from this episode from either of you before we get into some logistics?
Well, I do have more questions for you, Brady. Looking back at the season so far, as both, seeing you in it, all these other people, and just kind of hearing of his confessionals, has anything surprised you or stood out to you?
It's honestly just been such like an emotional roller coaster, like rewatching like these couple days over the course of the last few months. It's just been such a rewarding. It was honestly one of like the best weeks of my life. And I met so many friends for life through this experience. So to be able to relive like such a magical week, honestly, has been just such an amazing thing, and such like a beautiful, like happy, like, I don't know, it just made me so happy to see it. And the editing and the amount of work and effort that Casey and the whole team and editing and sound and lighting, everything that they do, the drawings, the storylines, the music, like the camera work, cinematography, all of it, and how it just culminates into such a beautiful, beautiful thing. And to hear so many different walks of life be able to share their stories and experiences, I'm just so grateful, and I'm so, so blessed to have been part of something so like amazing and magical, truly.
That's all I have. Drew, it's all you.
I don't think I have any other questions. I do have one statement, though. I don't remember who it was. Somebody, I was watching, I think it might have been with a friend. I don't know. Somebody was, that I was watching the episode with, was like, I can't wait to see Drew, Tyler, and Brady on a tribe together on All Stars. And I'm like, that's a lot.
That's interesting.
That's a mess. But yeah, let's get into some logistics. Let's do player of the week. Brady, I know you've watched the podcast, so we're going to do our top 3 players of the week. Should we start off with number 1 or number 3?
1 point.
1 point. I'll start off with my 1 point. I'm giving it to myself for being able to pull off lying about playing keys. Steven mentioned this like 5 or 6 episodes ago about I want somebody to bluff that they have more keys than they actually do to get people off of voting them. And I think I'm the only person this season that actually bluffed keys. And I got away with it when I was very clearly in trouble. So I'm giving myself 1 point. Brady.
Okay, so this is going to be interesting. My 1 point is going to go to Rachel. I think that she attempted a big move. It didn't necessarily pan out the way that she wanted it to pan out. But even through doing that, she was able to kind of integrate herself in a way that was like people still trust her even after she kind of did that. And for her to be able to still have those trusts with those people kind of shows how well she is in her social positioning in the game. And even after not being able to make the move and not have it go through, for her to still be in a relatively okay spot, I think is impressive.
I've been going back and forth. I think I'm also going with Drew for 1 point for the successful bluff, though. Like the whole coin handoff was made me kind of shaky there because like the coins did not go to Brady, they went to Matt. But I like that, and I think it, from what I can tell, it did change people's strategy and make them really not want to vote you, and that was bad for Brady, but good for you.
Yeah, Steven, who's your second place?
I was gonna go Rachel. I feel like we hear a very clear strategy coming from Rachel. I don't think Rachel doesn't get who she wants, but she's able. But I think we're clearly seeing her game, and I like the fact she gets that 4th key. She's playing the extra vote, and like, yes, it's not having the monumental impacts, but I think that gets more to where like I'm more of a story person than a resume person. I don't think resume necessarily is necessary for everyone. We'll have to see how that plays out down the road, but I think we're seeing Rachel clearly. She's owning what she's doing.
I agree. I don't know. I think I'm gonna give my 2 points to Tyler because Tyler, it seems like, was one of the only people this round who did not have anything playing against him. John has his paranoia working against him, and me and Brady kind of subtly doing whatever. Rachel has this plan, but she's unable to execute it. And then me and Brady are on the bottom. So it's like Tyler is in a position where he's in the majority, and the majority's not looking to cannibalize him, at least this round.
I need to interrupt us. So Tyler has a confession. He's like, why when moves happen, is everyone angry at me? And he's like, well, it's because everyone considers me their number one, that I'm my number one. And I think I've been very impressed with the social capital Tyler is able to utilize to make his strategy happen. It is very worrisome seeing the continual follow of, Brady, you're probably walking out upset with Tyler. Drew, you are probably upset with Tyler, right? Mackenzie is probably going to be upset with Tyler. Like you have Drew members who are probably unhappy and don't feel like they understand why he's doing it. And I think we've heard him say, like, wait till I get the final tribal, I'll explain it. But
what I will say about that is I feel very similarly. I've said on this podcast multiple times that I don't understand what Tyler's doing, because the first two-thirds of his game were building these really strong social bonds. And then the last few episodes has just been him completely destroying them. However, I think looking for these points, isolating this individual episode, Tyler had a really strong episode. Yes, Brady and I were not happy with Tyler at the beginning, but now Brady's out of the picture, and the other person who's mad at him, me, is on the bottom of a 4-1.
Okay.
And Tyler, like I said, Tyler's in that majority. It's very clear that John and Rachel have no intention on flipping against him. Plus, he has a final 2 with Matt. So it's like Tyler had a really good episode, in my opinion.
Okay. I'm buying that a little bit more now.
I see that. My 2 based single-handedly off of the episode, I would say goes to you, Drew. I think that you would have gotten my coins, which I think showed your social skills. You sent me to the jury, not pissed off at you, which I think is huge because I was a huge person that was in your game and someone that if you had to send to the jury could be a big advocate for you on the jury. I think that even though you were paranoid, you lied about the keys, which was a really smart move for you and honestly protected you this round. You probably would have went home if it wasn't for that. So I think that showed also your strategic prowess. Do I think you're in a great position right now moving forward into the final 5? No, but based off the things that you did throughout the round, I think that you deserve 2 points.
Much appreciated. Brady, who are you giving 3 points to?
I'm gonna have to give it to Tyler. I feel like this is like the cherry on top to like this crazy. We need to go on The Amazing Race or something. Honestly, that would be insane. But he got me out. Like I was his biggest op. Like I feel like there's no other way to really look at it. Like it's hard because I wanted to go to the end with him, but at the same time, because I feel like I could have beaten him, but at the same time, it's like he was the person I wanted out. It was a really confusing mix of emotions, but what I did know was that he was bad for my game and he was able to get the numbers on me before I could get the numbers on him. So I think that showed his positioning was strong. He's imploding so many relationships, but still sending people to the jury where they're not like as mad at him as people are at other people, which is interesting because I feel like he's kind of been at the centerfold of a lot of the things that have been happening in the game. And I feel like he's also been a heavy part of the last couple votes in terms of who goes home or has played a factor in some sort of move, and people still aren't looking at him as like public enemy number 1, and people are still looking at people like me or Drew before him. I think that shows his strategic and social standings as well.
And I think what's going to be really good for him in the end game is a lot of the beef has been with you, but you are walking in very like, just explain it to me. Like explain it and own it, and I'll be fine with it because that's how I am as her. And like, it's just gonna be really lucky that you're not gonna walk out feeling really hurt and upset about it.
No, he got my ass. Yeah.
For me, I think this episode I'm gonna give 3 points to Matt. Matt pulled off an immunity where he would have potentially been in danger. I still think that if like John, Rachel, or Tyler had won immunity, it probably would have been me or Brady going out. But Matt is kind of like next on the bottom, probably. Matt was able this round to focus on getting coins, which we'll see if that pays off or not for him. Matt was able to eat this round. We see him once again strengthening his bond with Tyler, where he and Tyler have made this final 2. I just think it was a good round for Matt, where he was able to be a more calm strategist. In confessional, Matt called his shot. He said, it's between Brady and Drew. I would rather go Brady because I think there's less likelihood that I could work with Brady going forward. He says, even though I've fought more with Drew has been more willing to work with me. So I think it was a good round for Matt, and Matt winning immunity means that I didn't win immunity, which makes me vulnerable. So good for Matt.
You're gonna forgive me, Matt. I think I'm doing 3 for John.
Okay.
And so I think it's a very interesting round for John. And granted, we hear from him, he would have loved to win immunity and just dictate what was going to happen. That didn't happen. But I think he's able to handle the potential of Rachel flipping on him and stop that. I think he then goes further and like kind of handicaps her game by trying to prevent her from getting the extra vote, preventing her from having the possibility to flip. I think he has surrounded himself with people that can keep him more level, especially Tyler. So yes, there's a level of paranoia, but he has allies that he's using to help manage that. And Brady, I know you two were close, but we don't get a real sense of that. And I don't think his game is very much attached to yours at this point in time. And so voting you out, I don't think that's hard. I think that's gonna help him moving forward.
No, yeah, it definitely wasn't detrimental, I don't think.
Yeah, and you like in the episodes, you can clearly tell that John was like ready to cut me or Brady or Matt at any moment. But you have me and Brady here saying like, yeah, in that moment, we both individually felt really close to John. So I think that says a lot about John's social capabilities in the game.
Yeah, because I think Drew, you're seeing John as a shield, saying hey, and like, or like, you know, hey, John's gonna like carry me because he's gonna see me as a potential like.
And I was completely willing at this point. So my previous ideal final three was me, Mackenzie, John. Mackenzie's out of the equation, so now I'm like me, John, Rachel is my ideal final three, because I was like, first, John's a shield, and second, I felt like I could probably out-talk John at Final Tribal. So in my mind, I'm like, John's loyal to me, I'm loyal to John, and I would go all the way with John. So,
and I guess my honorable mention is Matt. I think you've all said some things. I think it was a very straightforward round for him. Very much like, I want immunity, I'm voting this person, and it didn't need to be more complicated. And maybe there's a world where he like we've said, that Drew gets voted out instead, and like some flip happens with him, Brady, Rachel, etc. We don't live in that world, unfortunately, but I think it was a round where Matt knew what he needed to do.
Yep. I've had a request for a Bloomy Points update going into the finale, and we actually have some interesting things going on with the Bloomy Points. So we actually have a 3-way tie for first place going into the finale, and that tie is between Daddy Matt, myself, and Mackenzie, of all people.
Yes, Mackenzie.
In second place right now is John, followed. So it's 2 points between the first place and second place, and then 2 points after John is Tyler, and then 2 points after Tyler is Rachel, and then 2 points after Rachel is Brady.
So I get sixth again. Are we serious?
Correct. Yeah. So that's where we're at right now. Of the 5 people remaining, it's me and Matt tied, followed by John, then Tyler, then Rachel.
I actually give myself 3 Bloomy points just for being awesome. So let's fix that little standing real quick.
Yeah, I'm thinking. So next Drew, if you're podcasting with me next year for the next season, maybe we need to start doing averaging, right? So that way it's not.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So
yeah, and I'll average it out at the end.
Okay, that works too. But yeah, good. It's exciting to see a very competitive finale with a lot of good players walking in. I guess one other housekeeping. Did anyone have a favorite moment or a quote from this episode? We haven't hit that yet.
The cut of me telling John that I swear I won't say anything to anybody, and then immediately cutting to me telling Brady the same info. That was one. And then the other one, not to be like self-centered, but like they both revolve around me. The other one was when I'm being like chased by a camera and I'm like, I don't have time for a confessional right now. I will not be in this game if I stop to talk to you.
That was so funny. That was so extra on like so many different levels. It's like someone on like America's Got Talent who gets like rejected and they're like putting like their hands like and they're like
yeah, those are the two that are off the top of my head, but after you two go, I might have an actual real answer.
I mean, I think for me, I love just Tyler just booking it. Everyone just walks. Tyler just runs and gets the forest first, is able to grab a couple of bags. I think that's fitting with just the enthusiasm we've seen from him. And then Rachel and her voting confessional, a kid on Christmas Day, finding that key. And then she just has just the best laugh when she finds the key and says, "I can do this now."
I love watching Rachel. She's so good. She's so funny to me.
She is. She's so funny. No, I agree. For the best moments, those were the two that came to my head: the Tyler running, and then Drew, the cut from you talking to John, and then coming straight to me. The quote, the kid on Christmas Day one was super funny. I'm trying to think of other ones. Oh, me getting voted out, me saying on my fucking birthday. I thought that was kind of funny.
I think it's a Survivor tradition to go out on your birthday.
I literally, it's like a rite of passage, I feel like. But no, yeah. And honestly, just like the beginning of the episode with the whole, what was it? It was me, Drew, and Tyler all going at it. I forget. Actually, I think let me like play the clip. I think I have it.
The moment where like I'm like, so you're the one breaking the trust, and then I'm like it's like a dramatic like movie moment, not the Geminis, but no, I'm like the camera like pans to me, and I'm like dramatically walking away, and I'm like, you're the one who broke the trust.
No, yeah, because
so stupid.
Tyler was like explaining to me like what happened, and I was just like, I don't care, I'm still here, and then I like walk away.
That's such a good moment. I love it.
That was funny. And then you trying to do damage control when I was like, Drew, you said my name, and you were like, blah, 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 for like 30 seconds.
I'm like, well, yes, but no.
That whole interaction was just funny because it was like it's like that meme of like this of the 3 Spider-Mans just all pointing at each other. That's kind of what it felt like.
I love seeing the dynamic between me, you, and Tyler play out, from us being 3 on a tribe together to getting called out for running the game to us all 3 fighting each other.
Literally 10 minutes later.
But with that, I believe that's all we have for this episode. But Brady, without spoiling anything, what can the viewers look forward to with the finale coming up?
Twists, turns. If you think you know what's going to happen, it's the furthest from what you think is going to happen. Expect the unexpected. This is now Big Brother because you guys are in for a treat. Definitely get some snacks, get some ice cream, get some pizza, put on your favorite PJs, light a candle, because you're going to need some saging after this episode, because it's going to be a good ass finale. I can promise you that.
I love it.
Brady, thank you so much for taking your time to talk through this. I really appreciate it. And having the best confessionals here of the year is a treat.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, stop. Thank you guys so much for having me. I've been anxiously waiting to be able to do this with you guys, so I'm so happy we were able to make it happen.
Yeah, it was so great to have you and hear all your perspective on everything. I'm sure we'll see you on lots of other LRGs or, actual TV in the future. So
maybe.
We'd love to see it. But until then, we are awaiting a release date for the finale for the season. We're not sure when that will be. Next season films in a couple of weeks, in a few weeks. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Just Google Surviving Bloomington, and it'll bring you to the website where you can see the cast and donate to who you would like to. Also, don't forget to subscribe to Live Reality Games and Surviving Bloomington on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all of the places. Also, if you're looking to play in one of these games, look for the LRG casting pages on both Facebook and Instagram. Steven, anything else to say before we head out?
I got nothing for you.
Perfect. Well, the next time you see us talking about Surviving Bloomington, Steven will be hosting a roundtable for the Final 5, so I will not be as much in a hosting capacity. I'm sure I'll be talking just as much because I can't help myself, but I believe, as long as the timing works out, that all 4 of the other Final 5 will be able to join us. So we very much look forward to that, and by that time, we will have a winner, and it may or may not be me.
Thank you all for coming tonight and listening in, and have a great rest of your evening.
Happy Pride.